Hey everyone, it's Movie Lover Warren 20 here, and I am here with a brand new movie review. And this movie review is going to be for a comic book film, that's actually not from either Marvel or DC. It's actually from an independent comic book company that came out in 2010. This was a comedy like superhero film that came out before Deadpool stuff. There was one movie that is pretty much unnoticed, pretty much nobody even knows exists. As for 2010's Kick-Ass. Oh, scoop him. Okay, this is pretty much Deadpool before the Deadpool movie even came out. Very similar in tone to Deadpool, and now I will admit when I first saw this movie, I didn't really like it at first. I didn't really think it was that good, but then I rewatched it a few more times and I realized it was actually pretty good. I gave it another chance and I actually really do like it now. I consider it one of my favorite superhero movies of all time. One of my favorite comic book movies of all time. Now I'm gonna explain the plot of this film. Okay. The film is about an unnoticed high school student and comic book fan named Dave Lazowski lives with a few friends. Dave Lazowski, who has a few friends and lives alone with his father, has a life that is not very difficult and his personal traits not that overwhelming. However, one day he makes a simple decision to become a superhero even though he has no powers or training. So yeah, that's pretty much the plot of the film. And also plot. One day he does try to stop two muggers that he gets mugged by a lot, who are trying to hijack this car. It doesn't end well. He ends up getting injured and stabbed on the very first day of it, then run over by a car while injured. But then at the hospital, his x-rays come in and he has these metal plates on his bones, so he can kind of stand a few injuries every now and then. Yeah, eventually he does get out of the hospital, goes back to training to be that superhero he wants to be, and then stumbles upon this guy getting beat up by these thugs. So in short, he fights off these thugs, a bunch of people notice it, and he pretty much names himself the hero Kick-Ass. But it turns out he's actually not the only hero on this planet. He runs into this ex-cop named ex-cop like a Batman named Big Daddy who has to stutter on quite a few quotes, and apparently interesting enough, Nick Cage was actually inspired by one of the older Batman actors, Adam West, for the stutter parts of his character, so it's pretty nice. And there's other good reasons why this film rocks so much. Like, it's almost completely accurate to the source material, adapting many scenes from the comic series. Kick-Ass and aka Dave himself is a very likable character, backed up by a great performance by a great breakthrough performance from Aaron Johnson, who would later go on to play in a Godzilla, and then would go on to play, believe it or not, Quicksilver, for only one movie though, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe for Avengers Age of Ultron, and a brief cameo at the end of Captain America the Winter Soldier. There's some very awesome action scenes, especially during the exciting climax and the fight when you first see Hit Girl for the first time, and then in Ra's-al-Ghul's apartment, that showdown in Ra's-al-Ghul's apartment where you get introduced to Hit Girl. It's also a pretty awesome fight, and the very final fight in the penthouse is also a very awesome fight. But speaking of Hit Girl's very badass, and the child acting from Chloe Moretz is also very great. I think this is probably her best role, really. And then onto a girl's father, Big Daddy. Nicolas Cage does a great job as Big Daddy. I think this is one of his best roles to date. Along with, Spider-Man Noir and National Treasure and a lot of other stuff. There's a lot of good other stuff he's done. He has a great backstory that makes him likable, but not exactly in the right, and some very hilarious comedy that parodies common superhero tropes and more. And some great costume designs too, especially Big Daddy's costume in particular being a nice parody of Batman's costume. Especially it's kind of a funny joke with the villain like torturing this one guy that kind of already know Big Daddy's presence, and that's basically first only known so far as the guy who looks like Batman. And one scene in the movie is completely done in a comic book style. In fact, a lot of moments are actually done comic book styled. Because whenever they say like an on-screen text, there's sorry guys. Whenever you see an on-screen text, like meanwhile or later, it's written in the form you'd find on a comic book page. So I like that they did that. They did that too, and when the villain, Frank D'Amico, we're going to get to in a bit, is talking to one of his henchmen, the scene transitions like it's a comic book picture of a character. The page, and when you get to Big Daddy's backstory, it's done in the form of a comic book. Like a comic book origin. So yeah, there's some pretty good editing in this movie. And for the time, it was a unique take on the superhero film genre, as this type of superhero film hasn't really been done before. Well, that is until Deadpool came out in a bit, but unfortunately, this didn't really make as much of an impact at the box office as Deadpool did. It kind of went a little under notice because of all the piracy and stuff. But now, on to the villain, Frank D'Amico. Frank D'Amico's actually a pretty cool villain. Like, you kind of understand his motives, and he's very intimidating when he needs to be, very funny when he needs to be, especially with the good performance from Mark Strong, we also like his portrayals of who would go on to portray Merlin and Kingsman, Dr. Savannah and Shazam. So that's, get this character's name in Green Lantern, but several other big blockbuster films and your films. You have the point. Then of course there's the other villain of the movie, or technically kind of in a way, not really exactly a villain in this film. Well, this installment anyways. He's a villain in the sequel. His son Chris D'Amico is played by Christopher Mintz-Plasse. Was also very funny, actually pretty funny character the whole way through. He's very entertaining to watch. He's entertaining to watch. He's kind of a big scene stealer in a lot of parts. What else can I think of? And the ending even has a pretty great tease for what he would become in the follow-up film or follow-up comic book series, and that is, of course, the Motherfucker. Yeah, that's his actual name in the later stuff. In the first installment of the comic book series and first film, he goes by the superhero name Red Mist, well, pretending to be a superhero anyway, just so he can lure and trap Kick-Ass. Now for the bad qualities, and I mean, yeah, I remember when this movie came out, it received a lot of controversy because of the offensive content. So if anyone would be offended, for anyone that's easily offended, I wouldn't, probably not really a film for them. And then they kind of make some changes to the original comic book story, like in the comic book, Mindy's mother is later revealed to be alive, and what Big Daddy said about her wife being dead was a lie, but in the movie, her mom's actually dead, but I can kind of look past that. I don't mind it, really. It kind of sets up the plot. Sets up the plot of this film, so I can look past that cliche. But, oh no. I have to say, if you love R-rated comic book movies, specifically R-rated comic book style, R-rated comic book movies that have gore in them, I definitely checked this one out. It's kind of like, basically kind of like with the same kind of style as Deadpool, same tone as Deadpool. In a way, kind of like that, just like kind of like a high school teenager version of Deadpool. Before Deadpool even came out. But anyway, that's it for the review, and here's how I would rank this movie. I am going to give Kick-Ass a 9 out of 10. And that's it for the review of the first film. Yes, I will also be reviewing the piece of shit sequel as well. Oh god. I did not like, yeah, I saw the sequel. I did not like that movie, but I am going to review it. Because I reviewed the first one, so I gotta review the sequel. So I'm probably going to have to revisit it tomorrow to get the review made. But anyway, that'll be it for this video. Thank y'all for watching. And if you like this, want to see more, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Movie Lover 120.